Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. I see some newer faces, some older faces, some people I haven't seen in a while, so it's great to have all the support out here today. I'm very excited to show all of you what I've been working on, not only this semester, but really the past 4 years, my entire time at OU. I find that this project has been a culmination of really everything that I've learned at OU, and not only at OU, but abroad as well, and being able to kind of blend the fields of music tech and my studies in world music. It's been a real treat, and I'm glad to share it with you all. And what is it exactly that I did? Well, I created a sample library for the Gyil, which is that instrument there. Probably lots of questions about exactly what that is. I'll cover all that later, but I feel first it's important to talk about what exactly is a sample library. Well, a sample library at its core, it's a collection of recordings that can be used with hardware or software as a compositional tool or to create virtual instruments, just to name a few applications. And in this project, I'm specifically using 3 things along with my sample library to create a virtual instrument of the Gyil. The first thing is the controller. And the controller that I'm using is this Pearl mallet station. So what it's doing is it's sending input data through this cable here. And that data is what note I'm hitting and how hard I'm hitting it. And then that all goes into the computer and this little red audio interface that I have here. And all of that's doing real-time processing so that when I hit the key, you hear the sound right away with minimal latency. And finally, the third component is the plugin that I have loaded on my computer currently. And that is running my sample library and converting all of the data from this computer into the raw audio samples. And that is what is being played through the speaker. And the process of making this instrument, beyond obviously conceptualization, it all starts in the studio. You want to make sure that you get the highest quality recordings possible. And doing it with high-end microphones in a studio, it ensures that you're going to get a realistic sound. Because at the end of the day, the virtual instrument is only going to sound as good as the weakest sounding audio equipment you use in the recording process. So we wanted to make sure that we went high-end with everything. And then beyond that, there's multiple steps that we took to avoid having kind of a flat or static sounding instrument. So if you were to hit the same key over and over again, and you heard the exact same audio clip being played, you would notice it. You know, it wouldn't sound realistic. When we're playing a real instrument, you have dynamics, the way you attack the instrument, and different things that create what we call timbre, or the way that the instrument sounds. The 2 things that I utilized are separation of velocity layers. So as I mentioned, the controller is picking up exactly how hard I'm hitting each key. So what we did is for each key, we recorded multiple velocity layers, going from the softest touch up to the loudest whack on the bars. And that gives you a wide range of dynamics that you can play around with. And the second thing that I utilized is called round-robin sampling, which means that at any of those velocity layers, there's multiple recordings stored in each. So if I were to hit the key at its highest volume, you're still not going to hear the same sample triggered multiple times in a row. It's going to randomly draw from those 3. So every single attack is going to be slightly different, giving it that real touch. The next step in the process was really just a lot of splicing and dicing, EQ, volume matching, making sure that everything lined up so that as you hit all of the different keys, it doesn't sound too loud or too quiet, it sounds just right. And that was probably the longest step in the process because I had to edit 366 individual samples. And then I got into the coding part, so coding in lines for all of those and making sure that the sample player had a script that it was able to read. but then the result is a more realistic sounding instrument. So now we're going to go ahead and get this electronic instrument warmed up. I'll invite my buddy Will up on stage, and we're going to do a little improvised Piilu with electronics. All right, one more for Will. How about that? All right, now I'll answer the burning question. What exactly is a Gyil? So a Gyil is a traditional xylophone. It comes from Ghana in West Africa. It's a pentatonic instrument, meaning that it uses 5 notes, whereas if you look at like a piano keyboard, you see 12 notes, and then those 12 notes repeat over and over. This has a set of 5 notes that repeats over and over. And then the keys are made from a very specific African hardwood called liga. The frame itself is constructed from wood, held together with leather strips. And then below each key, you'll notice there's these gourds hanging below. And those have actually been dried out, hollowed out, and each gourd is tuned to match the frequency of the key that it's hanging below. So in the same way that we can shatter a wine glass using our voice, Gyil makers over the years discovered that tuning the gourds and shaping them to match the key provides a better resonant frequency. And then you'll also notice there's little white pieces of paper on each gourd, and they're covering little holes in the body of the gourd, and that's actually what causes that buzzing noise that you're hearing. So rather than getting like a clear bell tone, you get lots of crazy stuff happening with the overtones, and it creates one of the most unique instrument timbres I've ever heard. So that's just a little bit about how it works. Traditionally, the Gyil is played using heavy rubber mallets, so the ends look like this. However, it's a little too heavy for the controller, so I have the ends off on these ones. And I'm just using the handles. That's really just a brief synopsis, though. The Gyil has a very rich history, so many fascinating traditions, and I encourage you all in your own time to just look it up, dive a little bit into the culture, learn some more about it. There's just so much. I learn more about it every day, so it's been great to be able to do this project. Now, some applications of my sample library, beyond what you just saw, messing around with cool effects and things like that. Within the studio, it gives composers another timbre within their sonic toolbox. So anybody that's composing major melodies, they now have access to the timbre of the Gyil. Additionally, it allows people to explore an instrument for the first time, albeit, indirectly. I can imagine that there's people out there that have seen the Gyil or heard about it and been fascinated but had no way to actually get hands-on exploration with the instrument. And myself, I really latch on to hands-on learning, so I could see that being a great tool for somebody. Beyond that, in the classroom, it's great for creating loops, which you can use for your own practice. You can use it for educating or sending out samples. Additionally, real-time transcription, meaning that I could play anything and my computer can record all of those notes in real time. But with it being MIDI data, it's slightly better than an audio recording in the sense that I can go and drag and fix any of the mistakes I might have made. So it gives you a perfect transcription. If I was just messing around doing my own solo thing, coming up with variations, I don't necessarily have to remember every variation I did because it's all going to be stored there for me. And then within Ghana, it's a great reference as well for Gyil makers. It's something that the Gyil maker who created the original instrument, his name is Tijan Dorwana, and it's something that he could have loaded onto his phone and just have a reference and even pitch shift it up and down to get to different key areas. Additionally, I could see it being useful at events that need music, but you can't necessarily transport a Gyil there. It gives you access to the sounds if you have a DJ with a laptop or anybody that has their hands on a computer or a phone, they can get access to the sounds. So just to demonstrate some of these capabilities, I'm going to go ahead and play a traditional song called Kontonbili Wɛɛ, and I'll demonstrate some of the looping effects. All right. All right, thank you. You know, I really love that piece. It's one of the pieces that I studied the first time I went to Ghana, and it just has a sweet spot in my heart. It's really cool to be able to play all the parts alone by myself up here. All right. So I'd like to talk a little bit, really quick, just about why I chose to create this sample library. Like I mentioned, I find that it's the perfect combination of my major and minor studies, blending the world of music tech with what I've learned in the world music program and abroad in Ghana. And just to be able to share with all of you, my friends, family, peers, mentors, those who can't be here on recording, just being able to share with you everything that I've learned. It's so amazing. And really having the opportunity to spread more awareness about this instrument and the culture that it comes from. My journey with the Gyil has shaped who I am today, and I feel like I'm kind of giving something back in a way with this project. So that was why I decided to do this. The approach, however, when taking something from another culture, you have to really make sure that you're not stepping into cultural appropriation or cultural misappropriation. And essentially, you don't just want to take without anybody knowing about it or getting any kind of regard from the people in the culture or not knowing what you're getting yourself into. I think those are all of the ways that you find yourself being misappropriate to the culture. However, I wanted to take every step that I could to be appropriate, including adding things like extended techniques and performance techniques. So sometimes you'll see Gyil players click the top bar. That's got to be in the sample library. All of these different little technique things that real Gyil players utilize, if I didn't put it in my sample library, I don't feel I would actually be doing it any justice, because then you don't have access to half of the playing techniques you would with the real instrument. And then another thing that I added, which is probably my favorite feature in it, is the ability to flip the mallets. So like I said, they usually have rubber on the end. Sometimes you'll see Gyil players flip it around and use the wooden end. So, rubber, wood, and it allows you to, which if you've played Gyil, you know that's very important. And then just along the way, receiving expert input, not only from Jerome, who's here today, thank you so much, Jerome, but also Tijan, like I said, the guy who made the instrument. I was able to get his input on how things were sounding before we finished it all up and went into the studio to get the real recordings. Also, I'd like to give a quick thank you to Dr. Vercelli from WVU. He also gave me a lot of wise input that I was able to use in the process. And along the way, I abandoned some of my ideas because I thought that they were leaning into that realm of being inappropriate. Originally, I was going to pitch shift all of the samples and create a chromatic version of the Gyil. And while that would be cool, I realized one day if I'm trying to present this as a legitimate plug-in for the Gyil instrument, I can't present it as a chromatic instrument, because despite different tunings and different things across different Gyil makers, it's always a pentatonic instrument. That seems to be, one of the things that's never changed. So I didn't want to present the Gyil as a chromatic instrument. Maybe in the future that's something I'll mess around with in my own time, but for what this project is, it wasn't right. And then lastly, just my choice to use the program that I used. I went with a decent sampler, and I love the compatibility with phones, because not everybody in Ghana has access to a laptop, but more people are getting access to smartphones, and with that compatibility, the day that this is released to the public, people in Ghana can download it and have access to it within minutes. So I found that being something extremely critical in my process of selecting what program I wanted to use. But all in all, it's been really a fun process. I hope you've been enjoying it so far. We're going to close it out here with one more piece. It's another traditional piece called Gandaa Yina. I'll have Will join me up here again on the real instrument. I'm going to accompany on the electric one, and you guys will get to hear just how they sound together. All right, thank you. All right. Well, that's going to actually be the end of the program. So again, thank you all so much for coming out and supporting. It really means a lot. This has been quite the journey, not only making this project, but just my whole time here at OU. And again, I'd like to thank all of you for coming out and supporting. And Thanks to my professors back there and up here that have helped me out along the way. And yeah, if you guys are free, there's going to be a brief intermission now, but at 7 p.m. there will be another program featuring some of the world music ensembles, and then maybe a little global jam to end. Yeah, a little global jam to end, so if anybody's feeling free and you want to join us up here, come on and do it. But otherwise, again, thank you for coming out for this program. My name's Trey Martin, and I guess this was Technomusicology. Thank you.